Welcome back to Real Ag Radio and realagriculture.com. I am Lyndsay Smith, and joining me now is Derwyn Hammond. He's the Western Manitoba rep for Pioneer Seeds Canada. How are you, Derwyn?
I'm very well today.
Well, I hear it's cold though, so you must be
It,
inside only.
yeah, I'm in my office doing this interview, so it's a
Yeah.
nice day in here. But yeah, it's definitely winter. Winter took a long time coming, but once it got here, it's come with a
Yeah.
vengeance. Yeah.
Yeah, as it should. Which is why we're inside, staying warm, making plans for 2025. But let's look back first. The growing season that was for 24, certainly a challenging one for many, surprisingly good and in some other ways. What can we take from this year in looking at our evaluations as far as new products, et cetera, that you've got? What do we do about taking that and looking forward with it? How do we best evaluate this year?
Well, that's been a big chunk of my job over the last month or so is that positioning. Some of the new products we introduced last year and some of the experimental products we're looking to bring forward into next year. And so I think that's the key is putting the this last 2024 information in context, looking at how it compares to previous years where we have previous years results on those same products. This year for Westman, I can speak for Western Manitoba, right through to the beginning of July, we were much wetter than normal and much colder than normal. And so put a lot of stress on emerging crops and created ideal conditions. So disease was a big factor in canola performance in our area. And so what you saw was some of the new products with higher resistance to some of those key diseases like sclerotinia, like verticillium stripe, percolate to the top of the leaderboard on a lot of those trials in some areas. But in other areas, not far away, half hour drive in some cases, much less stress from,
Right.
3 or 4 inches less precipitation makes life a lot easier for those plants. And some of those products that traditionally had performed well still stayed at the top of the leaderboard. So
Mm,
it's really about looking at the context of the
right.
trials that you're looking at. Um, we can get away from that individual trial result by taking a broader look at over a wider geography. But it's also good to have a look at the local geography's results as well.
hmm I sort of take that, it could be two ways, right? Is that if you think about it in context and you're a farm or certain fields are often challenged by these diseases, that to me, really speaks volumes as to how good of a fit one of those products might be. The flip side, though, is it just shows you the importance of recognizing, in a good year where, let's say, disease isn't an issue, there's lots of really great productive options out there. But the unknown of that disease part is can really take a bite out of production, that's for sure.
Yeah, and so, definitely as I've been evaluating the results, it's just really reinforced for me what I've always felt that the value of that diversity as a risk management tool, right? Having some diversity as we go to larger acre farms, logistics becomes a big driver, and
Yeah.
there's there's lots of incentive to simplify, right? To go with one hybrid across more acres to go with a standard fertility program across more acres to reduce cost. And so maybe pare down our seeding rates. And so under those stressful conditions, we really saw that the well-established,
Right.
higher plant densities tended to perform better this year. And so, you know, I think it's both um, that diversity in terms of our cropping mix. So, with what commodity prices overall have done recently, but also lots of fairly large swings and
Yeah.
difficulty to predict maybe where we're going to land in terms of the value of different crops looking ahead. Having that more diverse cropping mix in terms of your cropping sequence and your acres, it's got value in terms of managing that risk. It
Yeah.
also helps you manage some of that pest pressure and
For
some of
sure.
the disease pressures that we saw. Um, come forward under the conditions that we
Yeah.
had that were conducive to that, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's we know and farmers have been are well aware of, as they create these crop budgets for 2025 of, where you may, try to save some dollars, but productivity is going to be really that key driver of that profitability component, that it's really about managing that risk, but selecting the right products for the right acres, right? It's incredibly important to match those up. Now, for those who, of course, are curious about, let's say, evaluating a new hybrid or a new variety on their farm, are we better off to do, 3 or 4 different trials with something across our farm, or split a bigger field in half? Which one gives us a better sense of how that particular product performs?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be really important to again, with that productivity piece, lower overall prices means productivity drives your overall profitability on the farm to a greater extent in those conditions. And so evaluating new products to see if there's opportunity to improve, it's really important. But I find it in terms of you need to look at it, the data you generate on that local trial on your farm, you're hoping to use it to predict whether this is a good strategy moving forward into future years. And so whether it's split in a half section or doing a couple of strips, that's one point of comparison. And it tells you a lot about what happened under those conditions in that field in those set of growing conditions, but it's not necessarily going to have a lot of strength in predicting
Right.
what might happen across all your acres. So my thought is a smaller acreage of that product or practice over more of your soil types, say across the farm, it's going to help give you a lot more information to make those predictions looking ahead.
hmm Because we wouldn't want to toss something out because it doesn't do well in 1 year, one trial. We want to actually look at it. But if you put in the work and you evaluate it across and it doesn't work out, no regrets. You can just toss that one out and move on to the next one.
That's right. But yeah, it's so often that individual single trial result, you pull average results from a larger geography and see that the average trend doesn't line up with that.
Right.
And then the other piece of that is monitoring those trials throughout the growing season so that when you get that final yield result, you can answer the question, why did it turn out this way?
Yeah.
Because that's really where you learn, was there the disease pressure or that, if it's an insect resistance or whatever the traits are in that new product you're looking at, um, did we have the pressure
hmm
that those traits would have offered an advantage or not? That can be a lot of back the background information that really makes those predictions much more powerful.
All right, Derwyn, we're going to leave it there. Have a wonderful week and get all those numbers crunched. There's
Yeah.
there's not a lot of time before we hit the field. All right, take care.
Yep. Yeah. Happy holidays to all your listeners.